This is Mommying While Muslim, recorded live and unedited. Watch as Zeba and Uzma record their podcast, see their reactions, and find out for yourself what all the buzz is about.
Mommying While Muslim is bringing you yet another retreat. In fact, our retreats have birthed their own name now. Fill Up Your Cup Retreats, or FUYC. We're kind of proud of that one. Women carry everything for everyone all of the time, and we know we can't pour from an empty cup. So we've curated an FUYC retreat in Dallas, Texas this February 17th through the 19th at a private retreat center, the theme being Introspection in Seclusion. See y'all there. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mommying While Muslim podcast. This is Usma Jaffrey.
And this is Zeba Hassan. I like the blue hijab today, Usma. Like what it's kind of like colorful. Tell me about it, because normally you wear your your black one, or it's like the black with the stars, like your constellation one. But where's the blue coming from? I love it.
I'm bringing it today because I know that you like the colors and you like me to change it up and mix and match. Plus I have to make a bunch of videos. So I figured, okay.
So you're like, I might as well kill two birds.
Exactly. So that's
and here I am, like, literally, I just ate my lunch, wiped off my lipstick, and I was like, oh, I forgot I had lipstick on today. Oh, well, I look a hot mess, but that's okay.
I think it's good. So tell me how your week has been.
Oh my God. You know, we, for people that don't know, we got COVID for the fourth time this month. And my husband is still kind of dealing with some of the remnants of it. And of course, I think with me, when COVID hits me all four times, I always get the extreme fatigue. Like I get bouts of energy, and then I just like keel over. And yesterday was one of those keel over days where I literally slept 12 hours and not a joke, you know, did a little bit of my stuff. And then I'm like, I'm just going to sit here for a little bit, fell asleep, woke back up, made lunch. I think it was like lunch or dinner. I don't even know what time of the day it was.
Meal.
Fell back asleep, woke up, and then fell asleep while watching the whatever football things that my boys were watching. Like I woke up and I was like surrounded by my boys watching football.
Is this last night?
Oh, you're finally awake. This was last night.
Oh my God, last night's game, you missed it? I feel so bad for you.
I missed it. I missed it. I have two that are, they call themselves bandwagon Bengals fans.
Yes.
So, and they admit they were bandwagon Bengals fans. I just could care less. You know, if it's basketball, I'll pay attention. If it's football, no, thank you.
Plus COVID.
But I just fell asleep. And, you know, even today I'm thinking, ooh, right after this, I might take a nap. And back in the old days, I used to fight the urge to nap and then like power through it. And now I have to say I listen to my body and I sleep when I have to sleep. And I definitely appreciate that. But what about you? I hope you're at least been healthy and COVID free.
Alhamdulillah.
By the way, yeah. I have gotten I got boosted and I'm vaccinated and all that. So I'm not even one of these anti-vax. I just keep getting the COVID vaccine, the COVID illness.
I don't know how you've survived so long with so many bouts of it, because I had one and that was good enough for me for a lifetime. Because yeah, that fatigue is overwhelming fatigue. It's like pregnancy fatigue times, I would say at least 5 or 6 was my experience, where it's
and
like,
you feel like you have jet lag.
Sink into bed. Yeah, exactly. And your excuses,
like your body cannot like you can't control it. All of a sudden you're awake and then you're asleep. And it's so overwhelming.
You can drink the coffee and fall immediately to sleep. Like it does, the caffeine does nothing for it. And like you have at least the excuse for COVID. For me, I'm having the opposite issue where I'm completely healthy, mashallah, but it's like, I find myself needing to sleep more. Like granted, I'm staying up late with my daughter because I am educating her in all things Bollywood right now as we prepare for a family wedding and showing her the classics, because we did a ban on like Bollywood for a really long time. And I did not want my kids to fall into it. And I love hearing her 11-year-old self saying, well, that's absolutely ridiculous. Like, who would believe that? And I'm like, oh my God, I used to. You're so much smarter than me. I'm so glad.
Aren't they? They really are smart.
They're brilliant.
In so
She's
many
like,
ways.
What is with this overacting and unnecessary drama? Why do they do this? And she's like, how come every story is the same? I'm like, thank you for realizing this, like probably a decade before I did, a couple of decades before I did. So I really love it. But that's not the story that I had today, because I have been sitting on the story for months waiting for February.
Why? I'm nervous.
Because it's a special story. It's the story of how my housekeepers one day were cleaning under the bed. And they decided to pull out everything that was under the bed and throw it all in the trash except for this one box that was very clearly indicated what was inside, not only pictorially, but also with a word. And granted, they are Spanish speaking, but they understand English. And the word for what this device does is the same word in Spanish, practically. And they decided to put it on top of my bed for my children to see. I was gone to work, so I didn't know what happened until I came home and I saw it.
And am I just missing something? I don't even know what you're talking about.
Well, it was a private toy. And
okay. Oh my God. I should have suspected from you. Oh my goodness.
Yes. It was a private toy to be used. And by the way, this entire series has the explicit graphic detail warning. So don't be listening to this in the car. So private toy that I don't even know how my curious children did not even go to the bed. They didn't open the box. They didn't look through. I came home and like swept that into wherever its new hiding places right now. But I was mortified and so upset and thought, this is a story I will have to share in February about safe storage for your things to maximize privacy and to have the discussions with other adults in the house who may be coming through, whether it's temporarily or permanently, like, this is what's appropriate to put out. And, you know, was this a joke? Like, I don't know. Like, I still don't know. But I looked it up and the word is the same in Spanish. So I thought, okay, this is just, we have to be more careful. So I think we at Mommy One Muslim can make a bunch of money if we created some kind of a lockbox system for toys.
Okay.
Because gun cabinets are very slim.
Okay, well, you would be the only one of the two that would actually need it. That's one. And two, I would have to say, kudos to your housekeepers for cleaning under the bed. That's the moral of the story that I got.
Don't clean under the bed.
That whole thing. I love that they're cleaning under the bed. I love it. The only thing they'll find under my bed is my cat's cat bed because she loves to sleep underneath us. But that's pretty much the only thing that's under my bed.
So my son was looking for a laptop. This is before we got him his computer last Eid or whatever. So in any case, he went hunting for it again in my bedroom and then complained to me about having to hunt in my bedroom. And he's like, you know, and I look everywhere in your bedroom because you hide my laptop from me and I needed to communicate with my friends and you don't want me to communicate. And then I end up finding inappropriate things. And I was like, inappropriate things? So here's a kid who knows the word, knows the device, knows that it's not appropriate for him. And so we had that discussion and we did end up talking about like, what are the appropriate uses and what are the appropriate uses for a device like that? He's like, I don't want to have this conversation.
Yeah, he's like, can we please
But I got in about 3 to 5 minutes of education before he shut me out and was like, no, we're not doing this. But, you know, take every opportunity as it is. I have another story for next week. So they're all learning experiences.
And just so you know, Uzma will have all the stories for this month. And I am very thankful for that because I'm the biggest prude of the two of us. But, you know, as we're saying, we're continuing our journey through this month of love. We're going to show some love to one of our most integral parts. I can't even say it. Is it integral? Integral? I can't speak English.
I say integral.
Integral.
I like integral, but I hear integral. Integral.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a Chicago thing or what, like most integral part of the female anatomy to all of humanity, our womb. Traditionally, when we say that, we're talking about our magical uterus, which we love here at Mommy One Muslim. Our guest, Chantal Blake, is a womb wellness educator and a womb steaming therapist with a professional background in nursing and environmental engineering. We're going to have to talk to her a little bit about that combination later, but she helps women break the cycles of painful periods and hormonal chaos, prepare for a healthy conception, recover after birth, and raise daughters who love their periods through the tools of the body literacy, cycle syncing, and traditional self-care. And I need all of the above. Welcome, Chantal, and thank you for joining us on Mommy One Muslim.
Thank you for having me today.
Chantal, we like to kick off the podcast by having our guests share a little bit about their mom storying and their momming philosophy. So whatever you're comfortable sharing about your kids.
Okay, so my mom story as like how I was mothered, possibly. Yeah, so my mom, so I was raised in New York City to Jamaican immigrants. My parents migrated from Jamaica to the US in the 70s, and I'm the first of their children to be born in the United States.
Oh.
And so I would say my mom was definitely a strong woman of faith. I was raised by a very devout, practicing Christian mother and Christian household, and even though I'm Muslim now, I learned the power of prayer from my mom. I have very vivid memories of her really interacting with God through prayer. Like the car wouldn't start, and she would pray, and then we would be able to drive off to school, or we would be snowed
Oh.
in and we couldn't go to church, and so we would have a service in our own home. And so my early memories and some things that really stick with me is that my mom was she taught me that God is real and that prayer is how we communicate to God, and that's something that stuck with me. And in how I mother now, well, I'm mothering Muslims, but still trying to instill that love and that sense that prayer is real. You know, it's not just this
Mm-hmm.
thing you have to do; it's this thing that you get to do. You know, this is
Mm-hmm.
this opportunity to commune with your Lord. And another thing that I really try to practice in our household is really just treating my children like they are whole human beings that are learning, and be a guide, treat them how I want to be treated. You know, nonviolent communication and peaceful parenting as much as possible, and also not being afraid to apologize. So my parents, my culture, Caribbean culture, you don't see a lot
Mm-hmm.
of parents apologizing to kids
Mm-hmm.
when they've done wrong, and I apologize a lot and very openly. And so I hope that they can see me as a guide, but they also see me as a human that's also learning with them.
That sounds like all the things that we wish we'd had growing up. So I feel like every generation, I saw this post recently. Did I even save it? I don't know if I saved it, but it was for every generation that is doing something actively to treat people better, treat their children better. That is a result of trauma. And, you know, it's not like our
Mm.
parents intentionally traumatized
Mhm.
us, but there were things that we needed that they didn't know how to do. But we're, I'm trying to look for it too. I don't see it. But the things that we're trying to do is a result of those things that we needed when we were children. And I wish I had the meme to share. I'll have to look it up and post it on our Instagram because it was just so meaningful. I was like, yeah, bingo. And there was a big Band-Aid on it to go with it too. So I was like, yes,
Mm.
we all need that.
Yeah. And it's,
So,
I think, especially as it relates to our conversation today, in my household, we did not have open conversations about periods, about sex,
Mm-hmm.
nothing of that nature. My mom, her mother had migrated to the US while she was still an adolescent. So
Oh, wow.
she was, for a portion of her life, she was brought up by her elder sister and like a housekeeper. This was very common in that time. My grandparents had already been in the US. And so I'm assuming that those conversations were not happening for her. And so naturally for me, she didn't already have that reflex to open that conversation. So one thing that I'm also consciously doing very differently is having very open, transparent conversations with my eldest daughter, with all my children, but my daughter is my eldest, and she hasn't started her period yet, but we've already talked about it. We can engage and have a conversation that's very open about it, and she's looking forward to it, which is so different from from me.
yeah, yeah,
It's so
absolutely.
funny. My daughter, we had the same conversation, but she definitely was not looking forward to it. So kudos to
Mm.
you. I must have done something wrong. But I just wanted to touch upon the fact that your mom was Christian, but you learned the power of prayer as a Muslim mom through her, and
Mhm.
having this a similar situation where mom was born Catholic actually, and ultimately converting to Islam. Like there are certain things that transcend religion, right? And
Mhm.
your connection to God should be one of them. So I love that you were able to share that with our audience today, because that is something I love talking about, and I love putting forward, because we all are ultimately praying to the same God, regardless of what your religion is. So thank you so much, Chantel, for being so open about it. But, you know, just from your bio and your introduction, I'm looking at like environmental engineering to wombs. Yeah, how do we make that leap, and how did that happen? And please fill in the gaps for all of us that are curious about that.
Okay, I'll try to see that. It's all one thread for me, but I can see it needs some explanation. So my mom is a nurse. Well, she teaches nursing. She's a professor now, but growing up, I saw my mom as a nurse and she helps people. And maybe I watched one too many Saturday morning infomercials. I was like, all the people in the developing world, like, these medical missions and help the children and UNICEF. And so I had in my mind that I'm going to be like a missionary doctor. I'm going to serve people through medical care around the world, right? Because there's so many impoverished nations and I can help. And so I wanted to also be like my mom. And so I kind of entered nursing. I went to a vocational high school. So I actually studied nursing while I was in high school.
Wow.
And I was an LPN throughout my college years. So I got to undergrad as a pre-med student. But then when I got to university, I was like, wait, hold on. My whole world expanded. I realized that all of these simple problems were a lot more complicated and intricate, and there were a lot more political and economic factors kind of behind the scenes of what I understood the world to be like, and inequity and poverty was a lot more nuanced than I thought from the infomercials. And one thing that I learned, and it really just weighed so heavily on my heart, was the fact that so many people don't have safe drinking water. So I'm like, the world, I'm sure there's doctors all over the planet, like people need water more than they need. Like, how can you have vibrant health without clean water? How can doctors practice without safe drinking water? And so it used to keep me up all night, and I'd be like, God, what are we going to do about this? Like, we need to do something. People need clean water. And I started looking at other fields that would address this issue. And I came upon environmental engineering, and no part of me wanted to be an engineer, but it just kept tugging on me. And so I changed my major from pre-med to civil and environmental engineering. I finished my undergrad and my graduate degree. And then I went on to work for a woman-owned engineering firm. And at some point I got married, I became a mom, and I was like, oh, if I really want to change the world, like mothering, like you're literally birthing the future. And
Yay, I have goosebumps.
I know.
Goosebumps. Because that's what we say here all the time. We are the mothers of the next generation. We're the mothers of the future, people.
Yes. I mean, I was, very involved in activism and in picketing and protesting throughout my college days. And then when I became a mom, it was like, this is it. These are the people that we leave behind, and we're grooming them to be better citizens, compassionate citizens, loving people, faith-centered people. Like, this is activism in practice. Like, it doesn't get any realer than this.
I'm about to cry just you saying that, because that is like my mantra in the everyday. You're only as good as the legacy you leave behind, and the legacy you leave behind are the people that you like. I kind of created a village of crazies, and those are my crazies. But my hopes is that they'll be able to, move forward and just make the world a little bit better. And, we don't take motherhood as seriously as we should, and we don't give moms the power and the authority and the support that they need to do that hard work. And to your point, it is a form of activism on some level. So I absolutely love that you share that with us as well.
I love in the beginning how you were talking about, you're going to talk about your mothering, how you were mothered, and that as mothers, we all need mothering. That's kind of what your work in environmental engineering through your children has now brought you to, is mothering mothers. And that is like our love language here, because we know, like, those of us who have immigrant mothers, like, they left that village environment. They left all their mothers of the community over there, and there's nobody to do that for them. And that's why, a lot of their trauma got passed on to their future, which is us. So it's so critical for us to mother mothers here at the podcast. That's what we try to do through the podcast, through any events like our retreats that we throw, through any of the articles that we write out there, through our website, through our newsletters, all of it. Like, we're trying to mother other mothers. Even if they're like kicking and screaming, we're like dragging them to be mothered. We're like, no, you have to. Like, you need this. You don't understand. Like, let us tell you. So I love it. And on that note, we have been getting messages for probably, what do you say, like a year and a half about, hey, can you talk about womb steaming? Because what is womb steaming?
Honestly,
we're like,
I had never heard
what
of it
is
before,
womb steaming?
So, yeah, exactly.
That's a thing. So tell us what that is, Chantal.
So it's also known as vaginal steaming, yoni steaming, pelvic steaming. It sounds like it's a new thing. Its popularity is new, but it's really the oldest form of pre-gynecology that we've had. You know, if you trace any medical text, whether it's a historic medical text in Egypt, in Italy, around the world internationally, our oldest medical texts mention steaming. Sometimes they refer to it as fumigation, which has
very negative connotation.
I know.
Yes, we totally misuse that word now, but the original intent was.
Yeah. So fumigation, steaming, dry steaming, whether it's with dry heat or moist heat, this is how reproductive health challenges were addressed historically for millennia. It sounds very weird and new to people, but it's really our oldest form of women's medicine. And there's a history of it on every inhabited continent. So we can't say it's an Asian thing or it's an African thing. It has European roots, it has indigenous roots all over the world. And where we see the practice of womb steaming or vaginal steaming still active tend to be countries where the midwife lineage is really strong, like the traditional lay midwife, not the medical midwife model. When we see that kind of apprentice lay midwifery model, that's always been their tool. The most universal way to use steaming internationally is after birth. So women would give birth, and herbs would be prepared for them to sit over to help clear out any pregnancy matter, clear out lochia, help to tone and close up the vaginal canal. It's had so many benefits and still continues to. So that's the way that we see it most in practice, most continuously around the world. However, we also see records that in some countries, steaming was used when women had fertility challenges or had infections. If they were, dealing with a particular issue, steaming was an extension of herbal medicine. I think that's what's really important. If we know that herbal medicine is our original medicine, plant medicine, right? Steaming was just another modality. So I can drink the herbs, I can topically apply herbs, I can sit over the steam of herbs, and then we know the medical benefit of steam, how we use it in hammams, in saunas. We know that steam increases circulation, it clears congestion, and the womb can use that too. So it's not as new as it may sound. It's just we haven't used it continuously in all of our cultures.
It's one of those things that's about to get culturally appropriated, so everybody be on the lookout.
Already is.
We're going to make this political, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry, can't help it. Had to do that.
She can't help herself sometimes. But, I have to say, I could have used some of that. To your point, after you give birth, the nurses give you that little squeeze bottle, and you're like, really?
Where's my lota?
Exactly, people. And we call it a lota, which is the watering can for those that don't know. So, obviously, there are some things that are rooted in history that have gotten changed and shifted, and maybe we need to go back to this womb steaming, and maybe this is something that, not to blast her out, but we were talking before we started recording, I might have to do that with somebody else that I know, and we'll have to go from there. However, when you consider womb steamings, what are some of the contraindications of that? And for those of you people that are like myself that just learned of the word contraindications, I sound super smart right now. First of all, what is a contraindication, and what is a contraindication in the realm of womb steaming?
Okay, so a contraindication would be what situations would you avoid womb steaming, or where it would not be beneficial, or it might be in competition, or kind of it might counter another desired effect. So we definitely never encourage steaming while menstruating.
Oh,
right?
okay.
If you're already having an active bleed, you're menstruating, then we wouldn't want to add warmth and steam because that can increase blood flow, right?
Oh, that's true.
Anytime we introduce warmth, we're dilating vessels, and we wouldn't want to do that when your vessels are already open and you're already releasing. So that would be a contraindication. Another contraindication would be if you're pregnant. Right. So during pregnancy, steam and heat by its nature opens, and we wouldn't want to open the cervix prematurely. However, we do have practitioners who teach doctors and nurses and midwives how to use steaming at the end of pregnancy and even in labor to help keep the tempo of labor along. So in the Czech Republic, we have a practitioner, one of my colleagues, who's trained dozens of hospitals there where they're actually steaming in the hospitals. A mom comes in, her labor is stalling, or she's only at 1 to 2 centimeters dilated.
And it helps with that.
It helps her to relax. It helps increase circulation. It helps to soften the cervix. And they're finding that there's a lower incidence of tears with vaginal births.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so so during pregnancy we wouldn't steam, but at the end of pregnancy, when you're already full term, we do find that it can be really supportive for a mom who's getting tense in labor, she's stalling, not making progress. So that's a caveat to the pregnancy contraindication. And then the other situations would kind of be sensitive cases. So, for example, if a woman has an IUD in, right, an intrauterine device, if you don't want to risk the chance of it coming out of place or dislodging, because again, once you start introducing warmth and moisture, tissues start to soften, things start to expand. So in that case, we would really limit how much steam she would be exposed to. It definitely would be like a modified, shorter steam session. If someone is experiencing an active infection, then that would also be a case where we would also modify, like make sure we're not introducing too much heat or certain types of herbs. If, those are cases where we kind of have to really manage how steaming is done. So those are the main contraindications when you're on your period, actively bleeding, or if you're pregnant.
But then when you're mentioning the postpartum use of womb steaming, I mean, that's also a situation where your bleeding and dilation might be contraindicated. So how many days do you have to wait postpartum before you attempt to do that?
Well, we wait until we teach that you wait until the uterine arteries have closed. So once you start to see that bleeding decreasing, lochia is very different from menstrual blood. So we can steam while that lochia is clearing out. It helps it to clear out very quickly. It helps to reduce risk of infection in case something gets retained. It actually is amazing at knocking out those postpartum cramps, which I experienced myself. Yes. Do you know that intense uterine cramping after giving birth? A steam session significantly reduces that cramping that you experience. So as long as the doctors or midwives, or is it evident that the bleeding is starting to decrease, then we know the uterine artery is closed, there's no risk for hemorrhage, and then we can introduce steaming at that point.
So like that horrible cramping that you have while nursing, you could be nursing over the steam. Oh, that would have been so helpful at the time because those cramps made me cry more than labor did.
Yes.
Yeah. Remember that one? Yeah. So aside from womb steaming, thank you, by the way, for elucidating on that and clarifying that. So just so that everybody knows, none of this is medical advice. So if you want to talk to your doctor about, hey, do you know any womb steaming specialists in town or any practitioners? Typically, they might refer you to the School of Naturopathic Medicine that is closest to you, or Holistic Medicine Institute. So you'll go there. Just let your doctor know you're doing it so they're not like, hey, why is her vulva so much plumper than it was before? Is something else going on? It's like it has those cosmetic effects too.
Ozma. Yeah. Thanks for the mental picture.
That's what it's supposed to look like plump and nice. So
it's not supposed to be dried and shriveled, ladies.
It's not supposed to be dried
and shriveled.
Thank you. Yeah, moisture and lubrication, moisture, those are other benefits of steaming is that we see increased lubrication, we see increased circulation, and that can be really helpful when people are experiencing either pain, discomfort, dryness, or just a lack of sensation. That's something that a lot of women they They don't feel sensation at all. And what I do find, though, is that many doctors, because they've never heard of it, they're like, don't even get near it. Don't touch it.
Oh, that was
Stay
me.
away
When
from
people
it.
DM'd us, I was like, no, absolutely no, not. Until I started reading about it. I was like, oh, okay. So this is a thing that women have been doing for centuries. And the fact that it's so cross-cultural globally tells you that our original mother probably taught this to our original, like I'm going back to Hawa because I just take everything back to Hawa because I'm like, I wonder if she did this, like that's just what it makes me think. Like all these people do it across the world through time. So, aside from the womb steaming for, uterine and vaginal health, vulvar health, as moms, whether we're in the conception phase or for those of us who are out of the conceptual stage, what kind of activities, practices are going to help lead to womb wellness? Because that womb, those of us who carry it into the grave, it can cause problems. It has changing issues just with as our changing bodies do. So what do we do to optimize that health?
I think the one thing that gets overlooked a lot is just resting during the period. This idea that you just keep bleeding and carry on, it's not really compatible with the work that you're doing internally. Like if you imagine you've created tissue, you're shedding lining, you're flushing out, your uterine walls are shedding, and all of this is going on, and we just pop some pain pills and keep going. So I think that really silencing of the womb is one of the ways that we get so disconnected and we don't even tune in. Like, wow, what is happening with this period? I'm experiencing this pain. What is that telling me about my need to rest or slow down? I think that's something we avoid a lot, is just giving ourselves permission to act like we're bleeding and kind of calm down a little bit, And the other area that we neglect a lot is not seeing the connection between how we eat, how we live, and how we experience our period. We assume that our period is in this one box and this is how it's going to be. But the foods that we eat can impact our period. If we're having warm foods and warm teas, then we'll probably notice less cramping, less brown blood, less kind of signs of stagnation, less clotting, because you're increasing that circulation. And that's what we see often, is that when women start to steam, they start to see their period starting and ending with red blood. They tend to see less clotting. They feel less cramping. The response is really noticeable. However, when we're instead reaching for cold foods, and in Eastern medicine, this is a big deal. Cold foods, what do cold foods do? They slow down our blood flow. They increase stagnation. And sometimes we'll see that as more clotting, more cramping, more brown blood, because there's just less warmth going to the abdomen, going to the uterus. So
that's so interesting. That's so interesting because everything that I've been reading on my wellness journey, I used to love like ice cold water, just for sipping it. And they're like room temperature or hot water you should be sipping, because actually counterintuitively, you think I'm sipping this ice cold water all day long. You're actually dehydrating yourself, not hydrating yourself. It's the room temperature water and the warm water that's helping you stay hydrated. So because essentially you're peeing it out, right? Versus it actually hydrating your body. So the fact that you're even saying this, it makes logical sense to me. I do have to say I have to read a little bit more about it, because I think that's more of like that Chinese or Eastern philosophy, that Ayurvedic type of the cold and cold and hot type of foods and energies and things like that. So I definitely resonate with that. I have a teen daughter. Uzma has a budding teen daughter. A lot of us actually have teen daughters. And as you know, when they either first start their period or about to start their periods, they're just all wacky, to be honest with you. And some of them have heavy periods. I know when my daughter got hers, I think she got it like one time, didn't get it again for a year, and then have it. So it takes a long time to get regular. And so that cramping, that heavy period, as they're regulating it. And by the way, it's on both spectrums, in the beginning and towards the end, because I'm towards the end as well. What are some things that you can kind of share if you were to like sum it up in 3 to 5? This is what I would do to kind of help minimize the stress on your body during these times. What would you suggest for us?
I definitely would suggest giving space for your daughters to rest when they're on their period, right? This expectation that you keep up with the same workload, the same chore load, the same training physically if they're doing team sports.
Oh, that's true.
It is very demanding. So actually creating space for them to rest, introducing them to herbal teas that are supportive, especially if you have heavy bleeders, then there are teas that are anti-hemorrhagic. So by nature, what they help to do is decrease blood flow in the body. And so these would be herbs like yarrow, for example. By its nature, it helps to stop bleeding. You have herbs like mugwort. I think also cinnamon has a similar quality. So encouraging them to really engage with herbal teas if they're open to trying that, and also really protecting their night rest as well, and making sure they're eating enough. That's another thing, especially with teens. They don't have the best eating habits, and it does stress our bodies. It does put a strain on our hormonal wellness when we're not keeping our blood sugar steady. We're not eating consistent meals. We're skipping meals. We're grabbing Pop-Tarts or something. That was my generation, Pop-Tarts for breakfast.
Yes. I used to break my fast with Pop-Tarts, and I think about that now, and I'm like,
how?
What the heck was I thinking? That's like a blood sugar rush that you do not need. But yeah, that's so funny that you mentioned Pop-Tarts, because I used to break it with the Pop-Tarts.
It was hard to eat Pop-Tarts because a lot of Pop-Tarts, the frosting had gelatin in it, or the inside had gelatin in it. So you had to find the one that didn't have any lard or animal shortening in it.
I didn't like the ones with the frosting.
No, we did. And it was we had a store, the store chain in Texas is HEB. So they made their brand of Pop-Tarts gelatin free, baby. So yeah, it was like, it took me years to finally get this. Yeah, I'm going to have one every morning. And oh my God, I can't go to school because my cramps are so bad. I'm falling on the ground. So now it all makes sense. The pieces are falling into place. But then we had our mom say, get up off the floor. Don't let anybody find out that you're sick. Go.
Yeah, you're
not dying.
Talk about it.
This is a condition. This is not a disease. You're going to deal with this until you die. And it was like, that's a lie. Because eventually we hit the perimenopausal. Were you done telling us about the teen situation and how to maximize teen health?
Those are the main things
the
about
eating
teens.
And the sleeping.
And if the mothers are open to it, what I find is that teens respond really well to steaming. They can steam. People will ask me, "Oh, do I have to be married?" It's not an intrusive, invasive thing. It's really just sitting over some warm water. It doesn't burn. If it is burning you, then you're not doing it right. Like, steaming should feel pleasant. It should feel good when you sit over the steam. It should feel like a warm bath, like how you sit in a warm bath and you have that sigh of relief. That's how a steam session should feel. So what I find is that teenagers, they'll steam like one time and it'll knock out their cramps. Their bodies respond so quickly, and I think it's just because they're still developing and they don't have years of complicated, ignored
traumatic periods.
Yeah, their bodies respond so well. So I'm actually writing a book for teens, a holistic period care guide for teens, and I do introduce the topic of steaming because it really is a powerful tool and ally if their guardians will be supportive of it.
Used appropriately. Yeah.
Used appropriately.
So I'm going to be selfish and bring it back to us, those of us who are perimenopausal, our postmenopausal sisters. Like, what is that postmenopausal womb in need of that we don't know to give her right now?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. What I would say is that, as our ovaries are making less estrogen, like, we have to really draw upon other reserves of energy, right? Estrogen is a very life-giving, proliferating kind of hormone. And as that starts to deplete, we have to really rejuvenate ourselves with self-care, with hydrating ourselves well, especially we're going to draw on our adrenals quite a bit as we get closer to menopause and rely on our other endocrine organs. And so definitely protecting our rest, nourishing ourselves well, and listening, setting those boundaries, and prioritizing self-care, especially those of us, our children are a little bit older. Maybe we burn the candles at both ends, doing the mommying for young children. But as our children are getting older, it's time to replenish, because we've put out a lot, birthing them, breastfeeding them, creating them, nurturing them, mothering them, waking up at nights with them. So it's a time of deep replenishment. So really paying attention to hydrating the self, nourishing foods, rest, and so we don't want to be decrepit old women. We want to,
we want to be plump.
We are vibrant.
We wanted to be steamed and plumped, ladies.
Exactly.
I mean, if you're doing it and injecting stuff in your face and your cheeks and all of that, not that kind of plumping, but like we care about like youthfulness that people can see. But this is a youthfulness for us that's important for us to feel good from the inside out. And I think that's always way more important than anything cosmetic. I feel like my wrinkles are like my badges of honor. Like I've acquired these because of the experiences that I had. Our mothers used to say, these hairs haven't grayed in the sun, which was, they had experience, and I think for us, it's like the inside wellness coming out is way more beautiful than like wrinkleless skin. Because if you don't have wrinkles on your face, I probably don't trust you. I'll probably judge you and think that you're too young for me to take seriously. So I think we focus on the yonis and make the yoni very healthy.
Yeah, that vitality. And especially even when I work with menopausal women, sometimes they're dealing with like hot flashes, night sweats, vaginal dryness, vaginal atrophy. And, in that case, we use very moisturizing herbs to help with that, to kind of cool down that excess heat, manage that, and then also to make sure they're feeling that vaginal moisture. It's not like I'm older, I'm supposed to feel dry and uncomfortable. No, you just need a little bit more love and hydration in the right places.
Yeah. I have to learn more because the moisture part, increasing the moisture, sounds really awesome to a perimenopausal, postmenopausal woman. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh crap, yeast infections, because we know yeast likes to grow where it's really moist. But I mean, this is going to be in the absence of any infection. You're checking and then following up before and after treatments.
And what we do find is that women who struggle with recurring infections, steaming in the right way with the right herbs tends to help knock that out really well. And there's very limited research on steaming, but what we have seen mostly comes out of the East, and it does show favorable like vaginal flora, pH after steaming, and less likelihood of infections moving forward. So yeah, it just has to be done, well, and probably with some guidance and support.
So Zeba just sent me a link for a yoni steaming kit. Is this something that we need to be? Ooh, she's going to go buy it. So before people start doing that, Chantal, can you tell us what your recommendations are for somebody who's actually considering doing steaming? Is there a practitioner they need to go find, like we talked about earlier, or is it safe to go buy a yoni steaming kit yourself and do it at home?
My advice on the kits is like stay away from plastic. If anyone is telling you to do your yoni steaming in like a sitz bath seat or a plastic device,
which is that plastic hat you put in the toilet after you have surgery,
which might be fine for warm water, but we're talking about boiled water and plastic.
That's too close to the yoni, ladies.
Yes,
you're gonna get a burn.
Too high, too close, and it's plastic, right? We would rather use a non-plastic container. Definitely don't buy the buy one size fits all kind of herbs online, because we all have different menstrual cycles.
I don't think my butt can fit on the size one fits all.
Oh, even I'm talking about the herb selection.
Oh, you're talking about the herbs. I'm like, how am I still on the bed? Like, I'm still trying to sit on the seat. Okay, I'm nervous. These seats look small as I'm looking at them online.
No, the herb selection. The herbs. Yeah, definitely. You want to, at least initially, find a practitioner. There's an entire directory on steamychick.com. It's the largest training institute to like maintain the safe practice of steaming in the world. And so there's over 1,000 trained professionals around the world. And I would say just reach out to just get a sense of what's going on with you. If you're a person who has tendencies towards really short menstrual cycles, then you wouldn't use the same herbs as someone who has really long menstrual cycles. Or if you have tendencies towards infections, that's going to be different from a person who has tendencies towards dryness. And, there's some nuance there. So at least initially reach out to a practitioner, or start with something very basic like just water. If you just want to try it out and see how it feels, you can sit over just water and see how how you respond to that, how it feels to you. And that alone can be enough to just, increase some blood flow and circulation. And if you want to go any further, then you can reach out to someone and say, hey, this is what my period is like. This is what I'm experiencing. What kind of herbs would you recommend?
So something I want to say for people like myself, and probably Uzma as more of a quote unquote traditional medicine or medical practitioners, but I am reading an article right now that's by the Cleveland Clinic, by the way. So we know this is a reputable medical journal, and they're essentially saying this practice is a new. Vaginal steaming has been around for centuries. It helps with increased energy, reduce stress, balance hormone, and if this is literally in the hot seat, it's saying that it is actually a good practice and under the right circumstances. So, I was a little leery. Like I have to say, I got the
We were
notes
both really
and
skeptical.
I'm like, I'm not sure about this. Just the thought of hot water about my, like, I am not sure, but I do have to say, like, it balances hormones, detoxifies the uterus, faster recovery after childbirth, hemorrhoid relief for those of us who
That's
suffer.
important.
Increased energy. And by the way, fewer headaches. I'm not quite sure how the two have anything to do with each other, but they've been found to have some scientific evidence and stress and depression relief. So I definitely say, try when in doubt, try it out. And thank you so much for sharing this. Uzma, did you want to do we're going to
get into rapid fire. I feel like we got so much to read on about
oh my God,
steaming,
I'm writing things down. I'm like,
yeah.
steaming. I'm like, whoa, this is exciting.
We have talked in the past about hot and cold foods in certain cultures and traditions. So a lot in the East, Far East, and as well as Latin cultures, they have the hot, cold food concepts that go back to any of our episodes with a nutritionist or a dietitian. And we have touched on those in the past. And I think in our culture in on the subcontinent, there's also like the hot, cold foods as well as hot, cold herbs. So while black seed is like the cure for everything but death in the Muslim tradition, it is a hot herb. So you want to be careful around your periods and stuff. So that was a spice. There were certain spices that my mom was like, lay off of that food during your period or your postpartum period because those are hot. You're not allowed to have it. I think saffron was one of those things too. So good to look back at those episodes. But rapid fire we do to get to know you personally a little bit better. These are fun questions. There's no right answer. Literally the first one that hits the top of your head, that is the correct answer. And I put 90 seconds on the clock and I ask you anything that I flip through and it like strikes my fancy on this list. But we always kick off by asking, what book are you reading right now?
The Walking Quran by Dr. Bilal Ware.
Ah, interesting. Okay, so I'm going to have to do that one. The next question I have is, because I'm a Harry Potter nerd, what Hogwarts house are you?
Oh, dear.
If you don't know Harry Potter, then we can skip this
My
one.
daughter does. I don't know what my house would be. I know hers. She's Gryffindor.
Okay. She's Gryffindor? Okay, I love her already. If you could have an unlimited supply of one thing, what would it be?
Coconut oil.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
you can do it for everything. It's like you got a bird, put some coconut oil on it.
You can eat it. You can slap it on.
Put some coconut oil on it. It really is the miracle oil. That's a great one.
I've used coconut oils on vulvas too during delivery per a patient's request. Yeah. Yep. We also did put it in some other places she wanted. So it was very interesting. But okay. What's your favorite season as we're ending our long winter?
Fall.
Oh my gosh, we're all autumn girls. I love it. Yeah. Whether you call it fall or whether you call it autumn, I think it's the best season ever. What habit holds you back the most?
Good one. Overthinking.
I love it. Isn't that every mom everywhere? This is why we need mothering so much, guys. Okay. What is your impulse buy at the store? Whether it's Target or the dollar store.
Ooh, my impulse buy.
You see it, you gotta buy it.
Ooh, chocolate, dark chocolate.
Dark chocolate. Okay.
I don't turn
Mine's
down
stationery.
That was coming. The journal was in my head.
The stationery. I know.
Yeah.
What time of day are you most inspired?
Just after Fajr. No, a little bit before Fajr.
A little bit before Fajr. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
All right. And that, we went a little bit over time, but I'm not sorry about it at all. And I'm so glad that you came on to talk to us about womb wellness today. It is just tying into our sex and wellness month, which is February. Everybody's tuning in and they're all going to want to know about womb steaming. We'll have your contacts and social, as well as Steamy Chick Institute on our show notes for people to look up and find a certified, is it called womb facilitator?
It would be a steaming facilitator.
A steaming facilitator. Yeah. And you can find somebody who's certified.
And I just have 2 things that every woman needs to really know. Your period should not be painful. If you're in debilitating pain, reach out for help. And sex should never be painful. I don't care if you're menopausal or postpartum or first-time sex. Please reach out for support and do not accept painful sex.
Yes. Pain is never normal. Pain is never normal. It is a sign that deserves not to be masked by pills and like just slap on bandages. Get to the literal bottom of it in this case and figure out why it's happening. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Momming While Muslim is bringing you yet another retreat. In fact, our retreats have birthed their own name now. Fill Up Your Cup Retreats, or FUYC. We're kind of proud of that one. Women carry everything for everyone all of the time, and we know we can't pour from an empty cup. So we've curated an FUYC retreat in Dallas, Texas this February 17th through the 19th at a private retreat center, the theme being Introspection in Seclusion. See y'all there.